Hey, fellow neighbors, Brian here from Neighbors Don't Knock. We just want to take a moment to thank you for subscribing to the podcast wherever you listen, or even on YouTube. If you haven't, go ahead and click that notification bell so you never miss an episode. New episodes will drop every Friday with great guests and lots of fun. Now enjoy part 2 of Why Martial Arts.
It's not slower like they're slow, but like they're just taking their time because, you know, they'll say hi, they're pushing their cart through. Like I wasn't used to it felt slow to me. I was like, would this person move? Go.
That's interesting to hear you say that because I mean, well, I guess we do move a little slower here, but
it's a good thing you didn't choose Florida then, because that is island time all the time.
I was about to
it
say,
felt unbearable for a while.
I was say, when I went overseas recently, like everything felt even slower over there. I felt, you know, and you're saying that we're slow.
But you don't realize how like panicked you are. Like when you're living in California or New York or something, that is actually that speed that you want is actually just like anxiety or like panic. Like you're just constantly like, come on. It's better. Like it took me a while to get used to it, but I feel better at kind of maybe a little slower speed.
Breathe a little bit.
Yeah, a
Yeah.
little
I like
bit.
it.
Well, I do want to ask your opinion on a little bit of some pop culture phenomenon because
Okay.
it deals with your area of expertise. You know, Cobra Kai that has resurfaced.
Yep.
Obviously, because we brought up Karate Kid earlier.
Yep.
One, are you a fan?
Which one? Both? Yeah. I'll just say.
Well,
yeah.
let's say, I think
I have different
you're-
things to say about each one.
The-
Karate Kid is so 80s. I wasn't alive in the 80s. So, I mean,
if you like any type of
Great.
martial arts type of thing, Karate Kid, it's just un-American if you don't like Karate Kid at all. I don't know.
I mean, I
But-
still quote Mr. Miyagi to my students. Like, there's things that he said in that movie that are just good forever. Those are evergreen. Like,
Is it wax on, wax off?
No.
No, it's not.
Wax on, wax off comes up when I'm teaching my leadership students how to clean the mirrors.
I like that.
That's about it, though. Or when I'm telling them, like, we're going to do a benefit, like, we're going to clean the cars for charity. Something like that, wax on, wax off. But no, he has some, I mean, first time you, first time me is something, you know, I say all the time. Like, especially we're just developing, like, a tournament team right now. And, you know, they have lots of questions. And I'm like, well, first time you, first time me. We're starting this together.
Well, I'm glad that you like. I'm glad that you're a fan. I mean,
Yeah.
we're big fans, and you know, we both like Cobra Kai. I watched it
Sure.
prior to Philip, and I remember I told you I was like, man, you got to check it out. I was like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, my wife and I wound up binge watching Cobra Kai.
Yeah.
Like we just didn't sleep for about 2 weeks so we can get through all of it.
Yeah,
in one
so
He
shot.
literally he goes, I was like, I'm so exhausted. I think we were gonna record one day, and you're like, I'm so exhausted. Ask me why. And I was like, dude, I don't want to ask you that. I was like, what are you gonna tell me? He's
In
like,
terms of Cobra Kai, I kind of want to. I don't want to go down a huge rabbit hole, but I don't know if you know this, but like I double majored. One of my degrees was in theater and playwriting, so I felt like the writing on Cobra Kai seasons like 1, 2, and maybe 3 was just so good.
yeah,
Like-
I agree.
4 and 5, you could feel them running out of concepts, and I lost interest instantly. But especially season 1 and 2, I think I watched it 2 or 3 times. Like the writing was so tight.
See, I think, well, I'm with you on season 1 and 2. I thought 3 to me
trying
was
to remember what 3, yeah.
was when it started to get ridiculous. I mean, after the high school like brawl at the end,
Yeah.
I think that was the end of season 2.
Yeah,
Like after that, I was kind of like,
maybe 1.
I'm gonna keep watching. I mean, I was hooked, so I was
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
keep watching. But
And
I
the
was,
karate was good.
It
on
was.
that aspect too. The writing was good, and also from a karate person. And also they filmed in the valley. I saw. Oh, that's Sherman Oaks. That's Reseda Boulevard. That like for me, I was like, you know, member berries all over the place. Like
Yeah.
that was great for me. It felt like Karate Kid. I don't know exactly. Maybe I think some of it was filmed because I've been there. But
yeah, they did filming in Hawaii and,
Yeah, it was
and then
all over the
parts
place.
of California.
But
yeah.
like I could definitely tell in Cobra Kai, I was like, that is the valley. That is Valley Karate. Like it felt very Valley to me.
That's
so that
very
was cool.
I think that for the first couple of seasons, they really tried hard to make sure that all the nostalgia points really hit, right? They got the 80s right.
Yeah.
They got all the nods to the first 3 movies right.
But better than something like some of the newer Star Wars movies that have tried to like bring back some of the 80s stuff. I don't feel like did it right. Like they were just like, see, you know this, a Millennium Falcon. You know that, right?
well,
Yeah.
they
the
thought
Cobra
that
Kai
things
like actually
stood for
put like a
themselves.
cool arc on a character that was the bad guy, right? And then they made a good character arc, I think.
Well, I don't think they tried to rely on the base characters as much from the previous movies. I mean, you brought up Star Wars, and I'm a huge Star Wars fan,
Yeah,
but
let's go.
I agree
Star Trek
that they
guy.
just kind of threw out like they're just kind of like, oh, here you go. This is the you should love this because you loved it then, instead of
Not a good
kind of building
story.
it. Yeah. So I mean, I enjoyed all of them in some senses, but they weren't, like you said. I'm with you on that. But I think what, in my opinion, with the Cobra Kai stuff, my question for you, first of all, I think 1 and 2 they did a great job with all that,
Yeah.
and I think bringing back all the old characters the way they did and integrated them into the story, not just
great.
saying we're going to bring them back. I
Good
think
writing.
they did a great job with
That
that.
writer's room, I want to give them a round of applause.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is rare to say
And the actors.
these days. The actors, I think everyone, just to say there's been a lot of, I'm not going to lie, there's been a lot of crap out there that's been written lately.
Mostly.
So I think that they did a good job. My question for you on this is,
Yeah.
what's been I guess the effect of Cobra Kai with students? Now,
That's right.
Karate's
question
cool
as well.
again.
is that really what it's done? It's just
Yeah,
been kind of
Karate's cool again. In the 80s, and that was part of why there's a lot of karate places in the valley, right? Like people saw some of it has to go all the way back to World War II, right? Like a lot of Japanese American citizens were located in California. They opened karate schools there. So a lot of it is that, but also people associated the valley with Karate Kid. So that's why it boomed in the 80s and early 90s. You have places like Red Dragon, like that were huge franchises then.
Is there a Cobra Kai in the Valley? Is there a dojo, a Cobra Kai dojo in the Valley?
Like named Cobra Kai
Yeah.
or like Cobra Kai?
Oh, both, I guess.
I
I'm
would
kind
say-
of curious.
I would say
strike
that-
first.
Strike first. Strike
I would
fast.
say that where the dojo I came from, which is Rising Sun Karate, which is out there, and there's actually a couple here in Texas. It has a good mix of Cobra Kai in it.
Oh
like
wow!
that, like
okay.
that kind of feel, the vibe, the bloody
Yeah.
knuckles type
Oh
deal.
yeah, like it felt like when I'm watching Cobra Kai, I always associate with Cobra Kai.
Wow.
Okay.
Miyagi-Do, I look at it, I'm like, what are they doing? Like I get the philosophy part of it, but
The sensitivity
the deep
dojo.
yeah, and
Indeed.
and what's good is I got a good dose of that later in my karate life, and it totally brought everything together. Like we never learned how to block. When someone threw a punch or a kick, it was why aren't you hitting them?
Yeah, because you
Wow.
didn't.
It was
You
offense.
didn't strike first.
Right. So it was
was-
literally that. Like,
You
but it
go-
comes down to
you
like
go
a
down.
it almost comes down to a strategy and philosophy. Like, hit them. A good the best defense is a good offense. That's what we were taught, right?
Wow.
Like if you're hitting them, you don't need a block. And if you got hit, you took it. You know, you bit down on the mouthpiece, and that was it.
Well, you mentioned that this is also booming now, right? So it's had
think so.
obviously a positive effect on it, but has it put any unrealistic expectations for students that come into your dojos because of the show?
Not that I've like heard. I mean, I don't. Maybe it's probably more of the parents who are watching, right? It's parent, especially I've noticed out here in the Heights where I am. It's a lot of younger parents.
Mm.
So it's parents in their late 20s, early 30s who probably watched Karate Kid. Maybe a lot of them did Taekwondo or karate when they were kids, and now they have young kids. So the young kids probably aren't watching Cobra Kai. I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
It seems so violent, right?
I mean,
I
A
don't
little
know.
much. Yeah, a little much.
Yeah,
It's
they're probably
pretty-
not watching it.
No judgment, parents. Like you,
No,
you
go
do
for
you.
it.
Yeah,
Go for
you
it.
do
Oh,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, if you have, samurai swords and sais and nunchucks just on your walls and,
Oh,
Yeah.
I do. I do.
So,
and
and
that's
you're
fine.
worried, and I like how he said, like, well, and you're worried about guns, right? Like,
Oh, nunchucks are more illegal in California than guns. You
Are they
can't
really?
you can't be walking down the street with nunchucks. You'll get arrested.
Fascinating.
Yeah, you can't ship them. You can't fly with them. You can't nunchucks for some reason.
this
I don't know.
is just two pieces of wood with this
I know.
chain. That's not a
Talk about
nunchuck.
the power of movies, though, right? They saw movies in the 80s where people are beating. Bruce Lee was beating people up with nunchucks, and they go, "Oh, those are dangerous."
Ninja Turtles.
The UFC still has a rule to this day where you can't do what's called a 12-6 elbow, meaning coming down. And that's because when they were making the rule set, they were watching karate guys like break, ice and break bricks with their elbow going like that. They're like, that is too dangerous to put in our sport. It's no different than a cross
Right.
elbow or up
Yeah.
elbow. But the power of movies and karate in movies can influence people.
That's
well,
fascinating.
Is there anything coming up with your dojo that you have, or tournaments or things that you have? Any or you know, where if we have any of our viewers or listeners that are wanting to sign up for classes, where can they do that?
Oh, they can call into any of our 3 locations. So we have a location in Heights, in River Oaks, and Siena, and we really like to reach out to those communities as much as possible. Like, we really try to be part of the community. Like, it used to be kind of like, we're a karate school, you come to us if you want this hard. But now we try to reach out more, which I think is cool, and maybe effective things like Cobra Kai, right? Like, more people are exposed to it. So we have lots of, we do 2 lessons for everybody that are free. That just come, they learn some of the basics on the first one. We'll give them, a little bit of homework on self-discipline. Like, we'll want them to go home and make their bed or brush their teeth without their parents asking them to. And then they come back, they'll test for their white belt on that second one. So we really try to get them integrated before they even have to jump into a class. Instead of just throwing them into a class, we like to bring people in, teach them a little bit, get them kind of on that right track, and then put them into class if they like it.
Is there open enrollment?
Yeah.
Like, just kind of on roll? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we talked a lot about youths. What about adults? Are there adult classes at the premier martial arts locations? Or
Yeah, absolutely. We, it depends on our different locations. Like, we have an adult class twice a week. Some of them have it 4 times a week.
No age restrictions.
No,
Okay.
no. The only thing, especially we've noticed this at our dojo, is we have a lot of teens, and sometimes the adults don't want to train with the teens, which I get. They're younger, they're faster, and also you can't be as much of an adult with them in the room. So we haven't had as many adults, actually. So that's one thing I'd like to expand going forward, is just getting more adults into the program. But
That's a difficult balance to do, especially this day and age with the way that younger teens are, and especially how careful you have to be with having adults and teens.
It is difficult. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I spent some time in my life doing CrossFit. And when I was doing that, they had a similar problem where a lot of adults would get kind of put off by the younger, seriously aggressive teens and early 20-year-olds that were in there kind of, flipping 400-pound tires like they're nothing and shirts off. And someone
I'm
in their
thinking
60s
16,
is going,
17-year-olds. That's I would be more comfortable with someone in their 20s. Maybe I shouldn't say more. I'd be more comfortable, but than someone with their 15, 16, 17.
Yeah, I agree.
But I can still see the adults that don't feel like they want to do classes like that. So that's going to be an interesting balance and challenge for you guys, I feel.
Yeah, my previous experience in the dojo I worked in, grown up in, a lot, if not most of the parents, I guess I just gave it away. A lot of the adults that were in the adult class were parents of kids. So, they see it benefiting their kid, or they want to do it, and then they join. So,
Oh, that's nice.
I assume that, we've only been open for 2.5 years. I assume that will kind of trickle in at some point, but a lot of them don't want to train with teens. So it might be something I've thought about, maybe doing more of an 8 a.m. or a 9 a.m. class. That's like a kickboxing / fitness for adults class. Something where, the kids are at school, they drop them off, because we have a Pilates place right next door, and they're killing it. Parents are coming.
So my wife does. She has a Pilates studio.
They're killing it. So I've come more to realize maybe they don't want to do the 8 o'clock at night class. They probably have kids at home, right? They have to leave there. So I'm thinking maybe go morning, maybe more for adults.
All right. Well, for all of you if you're interested or want to find out more information, we are going to have all the links in the episode description, so you can click down there. I said clink, clink, click. Click, click, clickety, click.
I've had a mouthful
click.
a few times on this episode as well. No problems there. But I'm actually super, super happy to know you, Nick, and to hear your story. So tell me this. So when you have the parents you're talking about, let's say, that did martial arts when they're younger, and they want their kids to be involved, they want them to have the discipline and the pride that comes with it, and all that stuff that we hear about in Cobra Kai when they're out trying to recruit, and like Daniel and Johnny Lawrence trying to get kids involved. What about the kids that are there because their parents are making them go and they don't really want to be there? Do they last very long, or do you have a strategy that you try to get them on board and in tune with the rest of the class?
Yeah, I mean,
Call them dance mom. I don't know if there's a phrase for karate.
We call them karate dads.
Karate dads?
Yeah.
Is it is it mostly dads that
No,
are that? No.
it's moms.
Oh, so you just say everyone is a karate dad? Yeah. Okay. It's interesting phrase.
That's interesting. Yeah.
I don't know where it came from. It may have come from, at least when I was a student, we like all the dads used to be very heavy into it, and they were outside like betting on us like while we were fighting and stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I think it just came from our dads personally, but.
Have you ever bet on your daughter?
I'm thinking about it.
But my attitude is great. I really like statistics. I wasn't great at math, but I really like looking at statistics. And I think statistically, if you looked at it, there's a certain personality type that gets into martial arts. They aren't doing group sports for whatever reason that is. Maybe not athletic, or they couldn't kind of hang in a group atmosphere. They have trouble at home. A lot of the parents that come in are maybe single parents looking for a male role model. I think just statistically, we probably get more of those kids that like. It's great when a kid's like, I watch Cobra Kai, I love Ninja Turtles, I love Power Rangers. That's easy. I can do that all day long. I just have to show them a kick, and they're like, oh, that's great. That's easy work.
I want to do that. Yeah.
I think
Green Ranger did that.
Yeah, exactly.
that's my sensei.
Tommy?
Yep.
Okay.
Jason David Frank. Just recently passed away.
I know. I was about to say, rest in peace, man.
I was just at his funeral.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, Rising Sun Karate. I mean, he has it out here. That's where I come from. But I would say the majority of my job is to get those kids on board. And luckily, like, I have the parent support, right? They brought them there. They brought them to me because they want to see a change in that kid that they don't have a plan for. It's a kind of, sometimes it's a last resort. Like, we can't get him. Maybe it's school, maybe it's at home.
Right, like the army is coming next if it doesn't work out in
martial
PMA,
arts.
right?
Martial means military. I mean, it's basically as close as you can get for a kid. So like, I just want that kid to. I want them to see progress in themselves. Like, sometimes it's hard, especially for a kid who don't have that permanence. Like, they don't know what they were like a week ago or a year ago. They can't fathom 5 years from now. They look at me, they think I'm 80 years old, right? They tell me that. So sometimes just being like, hey, 6 months ago, you couldn't stand on one leg. Or 6 months ago, you were fighting with your parents all the time. Like, just to show them that they are progressing. And what I tell all kids, because some especially parents will get into this, like, my kid's a brown belt. How is this other kid a brown belt? They're not as good. We're all on a different journey to black belt. Like, in the end, belts don't matter. At least to me, it's kind of a very Western concept, the whole belt thing. Yellow, orange, that came later. We're all just trying to improve ourselves. So, you know, your black belt is going to be different than my black belt. It's just about progressing towards something, just being better. And I tell these kids, like, if you can do something, if you can stick with something, even if you don't want to do it all the time, I'm sure there's times you have to go to work and you have to go to work you don't want to go.
Yeah, all the time.
You know what I mean? Like, as an adult,
Maybe occasionally.
As an adult, we have to do things we don't want to do. Like, in the end, I know 90% of these kids are not going to do karate lifetime like I did. Like, I want them to be functioning adults. Like, I want them to be able to make it in the world where they have to do things they don't like. Everyone's all about motivation. Motivation is something you feel for a couple minutes, and if I don't feel motivation, am I not going to go to work? Am I not going to go to the gym? Like, yeah, sometimes you're not going to want to come to karate.
Well, one thing I can speak from experience with this on both sides of the coin that I've noticed from talking with you, which we do appreciate your time.
Indeed,
is that you do love what you do.
Absolutely.
I'm not even taking your class and hearing you talk about it. I can tell because it's how I work and when I teach in theater or work in theater and even swim, I geek out more than my students and kids. And when they can see that, it's not a front. And I think that also goes in the fact that, like you said, they can get something out of it. It doesn't have to be, it's like when I teach theater, I was like, I know most of these kids are not going to go on to try to be actors in life or professional swimmers or things like that.
Right.
But like you said, if they can get something out of it, and I think the only way, I shouldn't say the only way, but I think a very high, I don't know, I think a very good way that happens is by the instructors loving what they do and just as excited because it'll, as you mentioned, motivate them in different areas, which you may not even realize. And so I can see that with you, and I can understand that. So I can appreciate your style and your love for what you do.
I like to be open with them to an extent. Like I've had teachers before that are very, I am the sensei. Don't ask me my name. Don't ask me my favorite color. Don't, like, you listen. I say, yes, sir. Okay. I try to be a little bit more open with them and let them know I was not perfect. Like, a lot of things did not work out for me.
Well, it's a way, like you talked about earlier, marrying that old age with the new age type of thing, right? I mean,
yeah.
Kids, the attention span it seems a little different, and we've talked about that before on the show. Exactly, right? I mean, it used to have to be forced to have like a really like good attention span,
or at least get really good at lying about it.
Yeah, exactly, right. But I think it is. It's a little bit of marrying the old style and the new style, not just flipping from one to the next.
I want them to know it benefited me. Like, it did stuff for me. Yeah, I ended up as a karate instructor, but at many different times in my life, it was going to go different ways, and it would have helped me there too. Like, my sister was a black belt with me too. She just, graduated from medical school, and like she wrote all of her essays to like medical schools were about that. Like,
you guys don't throw down at Christmas time, do you?
We used to.
Who use what's the tally?
I mean,
you stop keeping score.
He's wondering how bad the fight's going to be if he says the wrong thing this coming.
I'm going to put it this way. My sister was a dancer, like dance team, like that was her other thing, and maybe it's something about dance that teaches you how to use her hips or something. I've never been hit with a harder left hook than her. She has the hardest left hook I've ever been. It rattled me.
That's
I don't know
big
if just
thing to say.
how fast she could turn her hips or something, but she could.
There you go, sisters out there.
Oh, she can throw down with
or
anybody.
all you dancers. Yeah. I should applaud that because my wife's a dancer.
Yeah, but watch out for her left hook.
I might have won a couple because I was bigger and older. But like, all things being even, she could throw down.
Yeah, we don't need to tempt my wife to throw a left hook at me.
do you now that you're a full-on sensei and you got the responsibility of so many students and you're running a whole dojo, do you have the opportunity to compete anymore?
I probably could, but maybe it's just a personal thing. Like, if I was going to compete, like, I'd want to put all my time into doing that. Like, I want to do it well. I might be able to be successful doing it on the little time I have off work practicing for it, but I'd want to give it my all to whatever I'm doing. Like, that's pretty big for me. Like, I want to make sure I'm doing it the right way and not just like half-assing it. So luckily I made the switch to just putting it all into coaching. Like, I get just as happy now, like watching my students compete and win, than me doing it. So I've really just poured myself into that.
Well, we cannot thank you enough for your time. But I
want to flip it.
You want to flip it a little bit on us. Yeah,
I have a couple questions. I think it's like 10. I don't want to take out my phone, but I'm going to really quickly.
10?
Okay.
10 questions for
10
us.
questions.
Like 10 questions.
I feel like 10's a good number, right?
We're in the hot seat now.
No.
Okay, so this is just coming from naive California brain. All right, here we go. Where do you get the best hamburgers in Houston?
That is a very, very difficult question to answer. There's no one answer.
Is it Whataburger or what are we talking here?
Well, it's really kind of to each his own. What's the grocery store one? The
Langford's.
Langford's is pretty good.
Langford's
is a pretty good big staple here in Houston.
Yeah, I would start with Langford's and work from there.
What about fast food? Like fast food hamburgers?
We did an episode. You can go back, and for those of you that are interested, we actually did an episode on fast food burgers, and you can go check that out. Go to YouTube and whatever. So I don't necessarily want to give that away, but maybe
I'm going to go Bex Prime for your answer.
So it's In-N-Out.
In-N-Out.
Oh, it's not In-N-Out.
Oh, In-N-Out. The only In-N-Out in Texas is in Dallas. They do have 2 In-N-Outs in Dallas.
Yeah, I'm going to go Bex Prime for my answer on this.
Okay. Best places to go like at night. Like, let's say I teach karate and I get off pretty late. Where am I going?
That is going to depend on what you like to do. You know, if you're a club person, you're asking the wrong person. For me personally,
what if I'm not?
If you like live music, like live bands, live music, you know, it depends where you want to go. If you like bars, that it's really kind of, there's so much in Houston. What's your go-to like activity? And I could probably narrow that down if you told me that.
Probably not clubbing, but like, since I don't know anybody in the state really, like I'd like to meet people.
Okay, so social scenes.
Live music seems to me like I'm not going to be able to talk as much. Like I'd like to meet people, but maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there's a plethora of like happy hour events, like in all different types of things. You know, I don't know. Like Heights Beer Garden is kind of a cool place to go.
I
heard
think
about it.
Like-
I think from where you are with PMA Heights, and we'll put that location up in our episode description for you all to check out. I think that the Heights Beer Garden's a great spot. Johnny Goldbrick is a great spot to meet people. You could also, for live music that also has an area where you can kind of get away from the music to chat. There's a place called the Heights Theater right near you.
Okay.
They've got great shows, and they've got a front area where you can mingle and meet people.
What is the philosophy? I guess is a big question, but what's the philosophy of on driving out here?
Jeez.
It seems like to me, it's everyone says California drivers are crazy, but to me, it seems like in California we're efficient because we know that if we go too fast or something and we hit something, we're gonna be 5 hours late. In here, since I moved
aggressive.
here, it seems like a free for all.
Everyone's very aggressive here.
So do you have to be aggressive? Is that you just gotta lean
not
into it?
It's not New York aggressive.
Okay.
In my opinion, it's not New York, but if there's like people don't use blinkers.
No.
You know, they like speed limits are more like guidelines.
Yeah, we have
You
a small problem with stoplights seeming optional in this town as well. So I think you
I
should
had
be a
an
little
Uber
bit careful
driver
about that.
recently who said, "Oh, in Texas we can turn left on a red."
Yeah, road rage is also
Really?
a serious thing here too.
Technically, if it's two one-way streets, you can turn left on red.
It
so
wasn't.
if then no, your Uber driver was a little bit taking a liberty there.
Yeah.
So the
It
philosophy
doesn't take much to get a license in Texas, even though it's funny enough that I'm talking about renewing mine.
Yeah.
I wanted to say something about that. You guys were making fun of the DPS compared to the California DMV. I just recently got my Texas license. The DPS is awesome.
That's terrifying.
I was in there for
What's terrifying is
I was
you
in
use
there for 15
you use the
minutes.
adjective awesome.
That's
I was in
terrifying.
there for 15 minutes. It was great. Everyone was nice. I got to sit down. There was
gives
no
me
screaming
hope.
babies.
That gives me hope.
Oh my God, it was awesome.
I'm gonna get the link to the DPS that you went to because mine have not
yeah,
been quite
and
that
let me just
efficient.
tell you this:
was awesome.
The first time I went,
I wanted to go back.
oh my, wow.
I wanted to
that's where
just
you can meet
schedule an
people.
appointment.
Oh,
That answers your
my
question, right? You can
word.
go
It
meet
was
people right
great.
there.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so
Hang on, driving. I've got
driving
two
though.
thoughts.
No, driving though. Real
driving.
quick, my thought on DPS. When I was 15, you mentioned a crying baby.
Yeah.
I was getting my permit.
Oh my God.
It was we waited for 2 hours and there was like 4 crying babies.
I'm leaving. Yep.
Like I mean, that
come
was my
another day.
that was my first
not worth it.
ever experience. And that should have been a precursor to what it's going to be like driving on the road in Houston.
I wouldn't wait for Jesus for 4 hours. So man, you have way more patience than I do.
Yeah,
but
I would have been out of there.
so driving in Houston, there are two things I always
didn't
try
have a
to keep in
choice. I
mind.
didn't have a car.
Right? One, when it rains, despite the fact that it rains
I'm
here
not driving.
a lot, everyone forgets how to drive in Houston.
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
know what the deal is. It's like everyone just loses their damn minds.
Well, that and ice.
yeah, the ice.
That's how I
it.
came in.
Ice are just
Yeah.
Two, the speed limit on I-10, no matter what is posted, is 75 miles an hour to 80. Yeah, that completely ignore speed limit signs on Interstate 10. They just don't have any meaning
I don't
whatsoever.
see a lot of police like in California. Like you're always like in California twice a year you're getting a speeding ticket. Like they're everywhere. They're always setting traps. I haven't noticed that out here.
Well, you know, it was very interesting. I was in France recently, and we rented a car and drove everywhere. They have radar sections, like these big like machines or whatever.
They
that
just
on
mail
the,
you a ticket?
Yeah,
Yeah.
literally just mail you
Great.
a ticket like for your deal. And they're not like hidden. They tell you there's a radar section coming
Kinda-
up or
kinda
whatever.
creepy.
But it is a
Kinda
little
creepy.
creepy. But I mean,
All right,
it does help. I'm just saying that because I have heard
Better
from,
than having to have police pull people over and
Yeah,
interactions with police. That's
exactly.
probably
It keeps
Okay.
the
better.
roads
For them,
clear.
not for us.
All right, so all of our Houston listeners, you'll appreciate this one. So here's the deal: speed traps in Houston, 610 West Loop at I-10, right?
It's like
The
writing that down.
TC Jester Boulevard Bridge that goes over the railroad
Yeah, the-
tracks.
That's where I go for boxing.
The-
Okay.
Yes, it's like the one that when you get up
Yeah.
over at the bottom, there's a little median right there, and
Yep.
they tend to
They'll
sit
get you there,
Yeah,
and then San
Bikes,
Felipe
they're
by the
on a
railroad
bike.
tracks.
Okay.
Those are the three you got to watch out for. Other than that,
That's valuable information.
you're good, bud.
Okay, so this next question is kind of a follow-up. It's a really quick one. Where do you get your car fixed when you hit the potholes?
You mean
I've had my
every
car
other
less
Wednesday?
time
Actually,
than I've had it.
Actually,
It's always
I
being
can
fixed.
recommend a good place, and I don't mind giving them a shout out.
Yeah.
Memorial Car Care, which is it's right off of 610 and Memorial. It's like a little gas station, but it's right next door. Really, really nice. They quote you a very good price. The guys they're fantastic. My wife and I typically go there all the time. And I've actually.
Good.
Well, I mean, if we ever have to, you know, because you're in Houston, you have nails in your tires all the time.
Do you have a frequent customer card that you get points for? So they give
now I have a Goodyear credit card with them now. You know,
a free wheel bearing for every 10 visits.
But I mean, like if they do a job on your car, they'll or they replace a tire and they can patch it the next, like something happens, they'll patch it for free or something like that.
I've had a couple of those.
And Philip works on cars a lot, and I've actually said, oh, this is what they quoted me. He's like, that's pretty fair. So I recommend them. There's a couple. I'm sure you can find a guy, and there's so many places everywhere. But if you're like kind of in this area, I recommend them.
Okay, you've answered a few of these questions, so I'm skipping down near the end. How do you deal with the heat?
You don't.
You don't. You just live on it. It's like Mars, to be honest.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm on Mars sometimes.
I mean,
it's like extra gravity.
You get used to it.
Do you?
Yeah, I think you do.
So Michael, my program director, who I'm with every day, he's from here. He's from Cyprus, and I asked him, how do you get used to the heat? And he's like, I never have.
A lot of people you're going to hear that from, but I think most of them do get used to it. And my quick story for this, 2 little references. My brother moved from Seattle to Austin, and he has 2 little girls, or now he has like 5 kids. But at the time, he had 2 girls.
Congrats.
And well, sure, Nick, way to go, man.
Good job.
Way to go, Tiger.
Wow.
But his girls were used to living in Seattle where, and they came down to Austin and they were running around and their like faces were like flush and all this other stuff. Another time. And so they were like, they weren't used to this. Now you don't really see that problem with them. Even though we all say, oh, you never get used to it. You really kind of do. And I was in Florida at Disney World a year ago or something. And there were people from Jersey or wherever from up north that were down. And it was hot. It was August. It is hot in Florida, right? And we're hot. It's not like we're sitting there going, "Oh, this feels great," hello fall, But we weren't flush and
the humidity.
The humidity is
in California. It'll be 105, but here 90 feels like 105.
Exactly, right? And you just see all these people just like melting, and we're like, "What's wrong with them?"
So I'll say this about it. I don't think you really ever do get used to it. You just sort of learn to deal with it a little better.
Maybe that's a fair way to put it.
But
better way to say it.
But being from New England, I will say that your blood does thin out fast down here.
I've been here 3 years. How much longer?
It's like
how much,
time.
How much longer do I got?
All I can say is that I can't tolerate the cold at all now.
Really?
Oh, yeah. It's I used to have no problem with it. And after 10, 15 years here, forget it.
I mean, we have AC. We have AC everywhere.
My AC bill is high.
So,
Okay, next question is, what do you do in a hurricane? I know what to do in a earthquake.
Well, first of all, you need to have a hurricane prep kit.
What does that consist of? Like briefly.
Batteries, flashlights, maybe a little radio, some sort of little grill or something. Like I do. I have like a mini grill that you can have.
Are you getting a generator?
Well, if you're in a house, generator. I don't have we have an apartment, so we're not in a generator. We don't need a generator. They have generators within
toilet
our
paper.
Yeah, toilet.
Oh, I thought
no, that's a serious thing. Like toilet paper, bottles of water, bottles and cases of water, one for and filling things up. But lighter fluid and like charcoal and stuff to cook things. If that those are always a good thing.
Now, what if it actually starts flooding? Now I know Michael again told me, hey, you live in the Heights. That means it's higher up.
Well, that's why
he said you're going to be fine.
That's why it was called the Heights, because is
that true?
It was the highest elevation point in Houston.
Oh, okay.
That's why it's called the Heights.
But let's say the water's coming up. I live in an apartment. Am I getting on the roof? What are we doing?
No, don't. I don't think that you're going to be in a situation where you ever need to worry to that degree.
Okay.
I think it's more like just get your electronics off the floor, get your valuables off the floor. Your water is probably going to be, if it comes in, inch, less than an inch, something like that.
Okay.
You're probably going to be okay in the Heights.
All right, we're not worrying about it.
I wouldn't worry too much about that.
And this is my advice for everybody listening, everybody watching regarding this kind of stuff. If you're in a major city and you need to stock up on toilet paper and water, don't forget CVS, Walgreens, and your local liquor stores. They are great resources when the grocery stores are getting run on really, really hard. But I would advise that you do have the kit around just in case.
You can get a hurricane prep kit like already ready to go if you want it. I really do recommend that because you're going to need batteries, you're going to need drinking water,
I needed all that
like
stuff when I moved here.
There's almost no reason to leave where you are for a hurricane, but I will say that there have been moments since I've moved to Houston where people have had prolonged power outages, 2 weeks, 3 weeks without power after major storms. That's what you have to be more prepared for than anything else.
What's the plan if Texas actually secedes from the Union? Do we have to?
We're
Is there
good.
an army? Is there a militia? Do we have to do something?
That we're
Well,
good.
with your skill set, you may be in high demand, Sensei Nick.
Point
so-
karate? I don't think so.
It's a running joke
I
that
know.
Texas can
Kinda.
survive on its own. We got the Gulf, we got oil, we have
else do
our
you
own.
need?
I mean, it's just we provide a lot more. The cotton production up in West Texas is some of the most. I think the most production of cotton comes from Texas and that area for the rest of the
Yeah.
country. So I mean, we honestly could be our own little country if we really needed it. Now that won't ever happen. You're never gonna have to worry about that. But rest assured, you talked about you haven't seen any guns. If that happens,
Oh, they're coming out.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's neighbors that are going to be all locked and loaded at that point.
Houston will really come together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had many
militia.
I've had many an argument over this with a few proud Texans, and
think they
they've
could do
always just insisted that Texas can secede. It's actually not true. I did look up the legality of this. Texas has never had the right to secede from the
No.
Union.
No,
So,
it's
make no
it's a
mistake.
running joke, and it's most very, like you said, very prideful.
I don't
Texans.
think they care if they legally have the right. I think they just would do it. I think that's the idea.
It's very possible.
They would just be like,
I
we
don't
don't
think
care.
I don't think there's enough. I mean, we'll just say that those are the purest.
Yeah.
The purest.
They don't
Texans,
want me here anyway.
You know what I mean?
Try a mask mandate one more time. We'll see how that goes.
Exactly.
Last question. Are we all on the Houston Texans bandwagon? Are we done with the Cowboys? We don't care, and we're going Texans.
Well, first of all,
CJ Stroud looks like the guy.
I don't know, man. I've always been the city that I'm in. I support that team. I've never been I was a bigger Oilers fan, I think, than I have been the Texans, but I always root for the Texans. I really like it. I've never jumped to the Cowboys ever in my life. I respect the heck out of what Emmitt Smith and Troy Aikman and all them did in the 90s, right?
Sure.
But I
was very surprised. What do you guys call it out here? Academy. You guys have Academy?
yeah, oh yeah.
I went into Academy and a lot of cowboy stuff. So I was just surprised. It didn't seem like when I moved here, at least a couple of years ago, it didn't seem like the whole
Well,
city was on
they're
to the
the-
Texans yet.
The Texans have also been
Terrible, trash.
terrible lately. Yeah, they have been terrible. But I
They
will
look
just
good.
They do look good.
Yeah.
And CJ Stroud is the real. He's
He's
the
the
real
guy.
deal.
Yeah.
He's the
So
real
I'm like,
deal.
I want to get on the bandwagon. I'm ready. I'm not doing Dallas.
No one's gonna deny you that if you're asking, if
Yeah.
you're gonna be like, oh, you're a new fan. No,
I just don't want everyone to flip on me all of a sudden.
No,
No,
I think we're
no.
all on the Texans train at this
Okay.
point. But I will
Yeah.
say that,
I mean-
to the point of them sucking pretty bad for a while, there's no place to go but up at this point. So
and you'll find that about Houston, like sports fanatics and people in the city here. They live and die with these teams. You know, same thing like Dallas. They live and I mean, Cowboy fans live and die with that team. They have not made a playoff, or they have not made a Super Bowl or championship series in 30 years.
Oh yeah.
You know, but they're still like the diehard,
Next year, this
like every year. Super Bowl bound, like for having you
Yeah,
started, you know.
yeah.
But it's also the most profitable franchise in the
Absolutely.
NFL. So
Yeah, in the world. I think the
I mean,
Cowboys is the biggest.
Is it?
Yeah, I think
It's-
over the
it's
Yankees and maybe
insane.
like Real Madrid or something.
It's insane, like how profitable their brand is.
Great.
I mean,
I think Jerry Jones bought it for like $700,000 or something.
yeah, it's insane how much. It's what is it, like a couple billion? Like
I think it's $4 or $5 billion.
yeah. So I mean,
good on them.
and they haven't won a Super Bowl in 30 years.
Hey, good on them. But I'm
Need to.
Team Texans all the way.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
what
in.
we're doing.
Yeah,
I'm in.
yeah. Sweet. As long as you're Team Astros, I got no beef.
I think
But the
parents
Astros
of,
have been winning for a long time now. So
the parents of my
you better jump on that
the
bandwagon.
parents of my students usually know. Like I joke a lot during class. I like to make some jokes, and they like me. I think most of them like me. But I've brought up the Dodgers a couple times. Like, can't wait to see the Dodgers beat the Astros in the World Series, and
You get some looks, huh?
I've gotten booed in my own class.
well,
I've
that-
gotten booed.
but
That's dangerous.
But
Booing
you know
them,
what?
4th degree black belt. That's
They
a,
do not
that's a
care.
dangerous
in,
thing.
in all fairness,
They'll boo me.
in all fairness, Astro fans have been getting booed for a long time, ever since
Well, you
back in
cheated.
2017. But let me just say this,
Shouldn't have
'cause
cheated.
this is a big rabbit hole. We could I'm gonna try to pull myself out real quick.
Okay.
But Houston was not the only team
No, of course.
stealing
If
signs.
you're not cheating, you're not trying.
So, so I just want to put that out there. I'm not condoning what they did
I am.
as something
Go win a World Series.
that was wrong. But what everyone kept saying, and this is where at this point I
Sign
have an
stealing?
issue with it. I'm like, now you're talking about 6 years ago, and yet we've been to 7 championship series and we're still winning, right? And I'm like, at this point, I'm like, okay, come on now. You know, I mean, we look at the Patriots in football with everything. They were still winning. even after all
I don't
that.
think they cheated either.
But
so.
just what I'm saying. So I'm not condoning what happened, but at the same time, my piece is that the Astros were made the example out of. They were not the only ones doing it. So that's kind
Fair
of my
enough.
thing.
Fair
That's my take
We
on
can
that.
agree on that.
So.
Well, listen, Sensei Nick, thank you so much for coming on the show. And thank you for what you do. We like to have people on the show that contribute to the community, and I think that you are genuinely doing that. I really, really appreciate it. I do have a question before you go. We like to ask our guests for a piece of neighborly advice.
Okay.
What would your neighborly advice be to anybody listening or watching this on YouTube?
I read a quote earlier in the week, and it said, like, I love my neighbors so much that I think I'm going to get soundproofing because they're so loud. And I think
Fair enough.
now that's kind of my funny answer. But I think we in our program when we're teaching karate, like our students going for black belt, they have to earn 6 patches, and some of them are like 100 random acts of kindness. Like they have to do that. They have to do, like, there's a charity patch, there's an academics patch. Like I think that there's something we could all do, like, personally. Like I like, there are some people out there that want to, like, change the world. I think that's great, and change their community. I would like to see a lot more people maybe take just more personal responsibility. Like, do what you can do. Like the small, like how you do some things is how you're gonna do everything, right? Like I see a lot of people, maybe they don't park in the lines, or they don't put their basket back. Just like the as much as you can personally, and take ownership of, like, the idea that all my students, you know, if I have 100 students, I'll do 100 random acts of kindness. I think it makes the community better, just one person at a time. So personal responsibility.
That's really, really good advice. And I think that actually is very Miyagi-Do. So maybe you did take a little bit in the latter half of the career.
Definitely. I think, like, in martial arts and in Japanese culture, they have yin and yang, right? Like, you have to have equal and opposite parts of both sides. Like, you have to have the aggressive Cobra Kai, you have to have the defensive Miyagi. I think both work together.
Yeah. Well, would you be the yin or the yang, or the Cobra Kai, or the what?
You know, after seeing Cobra Kai, and I'm enamored with the whole Johnny Lawrence character. I think it's great. The writing is fantastic for him. So I'm going to go Cobra Kai because it's badass.
Go writers for Cobra Kai.
Of course you would go with Cobra Kai. Of course you would, man.
Strike first, strike fast. No mercy.
Strike first, strike fast. But anyway, we want to thank you guys for listening. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We drop episodes every Friday.
Absolutely.
We'll catch you guys later. Peace.
Out.